Hi guys, welcome again to our next session. This is session number 8 and we'll be speaking about Python strings. So you could have seen strings before when we were doing our first few programs. So this should not be a mountain to climb, but there are some few things I will want to introduce on this session. So let's start with our lesson. So as I've said, you have seen strings before when we're doing our printing function, and whatever we're putting in between the quotation, I did mention that this is a string, right? So, and we also learned already that you can have a string. Let's say you can call it name, and you can just give it that quotation. When you will give it something inside, then it will also be identified as a string. So both of those are regarded as a string. You should just be aware of that. You will see when I try to run this one, it will print the name Tendo. Even if I bring back the name in terms of a variable and execute this, it will now print two strings that are within my code. Right, so that is as far as we know about strings. We've also seen some few functions on strings that I didn't explain much into, right? So let's just restart afresh on strings. So strings, Python is able, as we have said, Python is able to identify a string just by you putting the quotations on your variable, right? So Python will be able to identify a string. As you can see here, I'm making an example using the variable a, and then Python, as you saw from previous lesson, we are able to go find out what is the type of the following variable, which is a, and Python should be able to tell us that this is of the class string. So it's very important for us to notice that Python will identify a string for us. Something maybe I did not demonstrate on the previous lesson when we were doing casting is the following. You can have a number here. You can have x, let's say it's 5, and then you can have y, which is 6, right? And then you can cast this to become a string. Let's say you have a value here called a. So you can cast all of this into what? Into a string. So you can go and cast the following value, which is x, to become a string, right? Which means 5 becomes a string instead of it being a number, right? So it's no longer regarded as a number. You can do the same with y. So you can go cast y to also become a string, right? So now x and y will remain a number, but the value a and b are now of type string. And basically what you have just done, it's almost as if you have done the following. So I will just put it in a comment. What you have just done, it's as if you have said for this statement, it's as if you have said 5 in quotation, and then for this statement, it's as if you have said 6 in quotation, right? So you are turning the number 5 to become a string instead of it just becoming a number, right? And there are also long strings, right? Long strings are written in a type of a comment, right? So if you remember those long comments that I was showing you previously, they can also work in terms of a string. So for example, let's say you want to write a very long sentence. So you will say this is a statement, right? So you want to write a long statement, or let's call this variable address, because address is usually long. So in address, we know it will be long. So if you want to navigate also and move writing your, let's say the address is written in this manner, 360 Kent Avenue, right? And you want to press enter so that you write more values, right? You will see with this new PyCharm, it will put a slash for me. This is to notify me that the string has not yet ended, right? So I can then continue and say rand back, right? The minute I put enter, it continues to put a slash for me and then I can continue to write maybe the code 2194. So all this becomes part of one string, and then I can just go and say show me the value of address, and then we'll see what kind of results will brought to me. So it combines all the string together so that I get a single result. So there is this first part wherein you can use a slash on this IDE. You can use a slash to show that and this is a backward slash to show that your line is not ended, you are continuing to another line, right? Or you can do it in the following manner, right? So instead of this, you can also have the variable address, wherein you still have most of these things. So address, then you put, instead of double quotation, you put 1, 2, 3, right? So you press enter. So remember, this we used them when we're doing comments, right? So when we're doing comments, we realized that they could comment out a long statement of comment, but then even here they can be used to write an what we call a long string, right? So here I can come here and say this is 360 Kent Avenue, and then the address is Randbeck, and then the code is 2194, right? So this will still work in the same manner that you saw the other previous statement working, and then you will see when I pinpoint to address, it will now bring the address in the same manner that you see it as shown there. So this just allows you to have an output that you are desiring in the format that you desire, right? So this looks much nicer than the previous one. So that is another way where we can work with strings in terms of output. So you have seen now single line output, and now you are seeing multiple line output, right? And then there is also a string wherein instead of using double quotation, you are also allowed to say I'm gonna use single quotations, right? So the same way we did with the double quotation, you can also use 3 single quotation to get the same result. You will see it will still work even if it's double or even if it's single. It will still work in the same manner, right? No difficulty on that part. Now let's get into some of the nice functionality of strings, right? So I'm just gonna start with a simple string. I will call it you know, A, or yeah, let's call it A, and we are going to put the value because today is Saturday, we're gonna put Saturday inside. Forgive my spelling, Saturday inside. So I can go and print out the value A. We're about to start with the okay, so everything looks fine. This is common knowledge that we're aware of, but then now the new thing I want to explain now is that a string is also regarded as an array in Python, right? So an array, it's something which looks like this, wherein there are values inside starting from index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, you know, index 4, index 5, like that, index 6. So but it forever starts with what? With a 0, right? So it goes on like that. What this means that the value 0 here on my string A will represent the letter S. Index 1 will represent the letter A, right? Index 2 will represent the letter T, like that, right? So it's very simple to maneuver around. Just regard it as an array, which means that you can access each letter using the number next which is associated to it, right? So let's go see an example. Now instead of calling A, I'm gonna call A index 0, right? Let's see what will be shown in our screen. There we go. So A index 0 pinpoints at the letter S, and then you can already imagine what's going to happen if I say index 1. You get the letter A, right? So this is very simple to maneuver around. You just need to remember that a string is also regarded as an array, and an array is just a block of memory which save same things of the same type. So if it's letters, save letters and things like that. If it's numbers, it's gonna save numbers. So basically that's what we are trying to illustrate here. So also you can perform mathematical operation here. So you can go and say print the string A, but then in terms of array you can say show me 10 minus 5, right? So 10 what it does first, it goes and say what is 10 minus 5 is 5. So where is the position 5? You say index 0 1 2 3 4 5. So it does the same on the string Saturday 0 1 2 3 4 5. So we expect the letter D to be displayed. So let's go sing, and then as you can see it displays the letter D. So whatever is here, it can be a mathematical operation, whatever you want, it will still give you the result. And the next up on this navigation of using array, we can also do what we call slicing, right? So slicing simply means that we are going to slice our results. So we're not interested in every result. So this we have seen mostly in card numbers, where in a system will tell you give me the last 4 digits of your card number, you know, give me the you know, anything. I've seen mostly in card numbers, in emails verification. I've seen it in cell phone number verification. I've also seen it wherein it goes and slice a piece of information which could be missing, where a user is required to input that information. So how does slicing work? So slicing will simply mean that we're going to still pinpoint at the letter, the variable A, but then now we're going to slice it, meaning we can say please start showing us results from index 0 all the way up to index 3, right? So you can already imagine what kind of results we're going to get. We're going to get only 0 1 2 3. Remember, 3 would be excluded. That is very important to notice. 3 will be excluded, but then the first 0, it is included. So this is inclusive and exclusive on the other side, right? You can also maybe manipulate and say show me starting from 3 ending at 7. Let's see what we're gonna get, and then you get the other letters which are associated with that, and then others could even say let's go up to 8 and maybe start at 5. Let's see what kind of results are we going to get. We're going to get the word day from Saturday, right? So basically that's what we mean by slicing. It goes and slice based on what it's capable of picking up, right? So there are other slicing as well that starts on the negative, right? But we don't have to be looking through that. You can try that on your own, maybe by saying show me from -1 up to you know, -5, and let's see what kind of results are we going to get. You normally don't get anything, maybe -3. You see there's still no result. So you might want to play around those kind of things as well. Maybe before we move on, there is another part I want to show you here. When we're dealing with accesses, let's say we're accessing index number 5. This will be easy for you to guess. We're gonna get the letter D, which is this one, right? Very simple to navigate. But then let's assume that this was not the actual letter. Let's say this was a sentence which says today is Saturday, right? Very simple. You must remember that even this space which you see here are going to be regarded as an index. So if someone says please give me index number 6, and let's just go try to navigate index number 6. Index number 6, it's sitting at the letter I. So index number 5, you will see index number 5 produce nothing. This nothing simply means that there was a space there, right? So if we remove this with a dot, you will see that the results will be the dot that will be returned to us. So very simple. I just wanted to notify you that a string can be long, and when we're accessing or slicing, we must also consider that there could be spaces in between. There could be special characters that we must keep in mind as well. Okay, so there are other functions as well that I'll want to go through, like the function for the length. So let's simply just go to the length. So the function for the length simply says you can print, right? You can print the length, and the length in strings it's written just in Python is written just by the letter Len, right? So now you can say print the string, the length of the variable a, and it's gonna calculate the total of the length here. So the length does not start with 0, it definitely starts at 1. Say 1 2 3 4 5 6 with the space, 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 and 17, right? So basically we are expecting the results which will say the length is 17 if my counting is right. So there we see the length is 17, right? So you can do this over and over again. Sometimes it's important, especially when you get to loops, you'll want to loop based on the length of something so that you know where to end, where are you starting, right? Okay, so there are other functions as well. The other function is the strip, right? So the strip, just like when someone is stripping, basically means that something is being taken off, right? So let's go and strip our string here and see what we're going to get. So if I go and say and the strip now works in different manner. You have seen in most cases we're saying the name of the function, then the name of the variable later, but then the strip says the name of the variable, then we'll bring the strip. So what does the strip do? Let's just focus on the string itself. It says today it's Saturday. Also focus on the empty spaces there, the space bars. So when I execute this strip, you will see that it says today is Saturday, right? Very simple there on the strip. But then if there were other white spaces, for example, if I say there are spaces here, right? Let's just focus on where the T is starting, right? Starting right exactly on the line. So let's say there were spaces just before. When I execute this, it disregards that space, right? So let's see the results of not having a strip in our sentence. So you will see if we don't have a strip, today is Saturday starts somewhere where the string was telling it to start, somewhere where in the space are considered. But then now if you introduce variable.strip, you will see that it disregards all of those spaces and allows your sentence to start in the beginning of the line, right? Very important to notice as well. There are other functions as well I want to go through quickly. So let me just remove this. Okay, so the other one I want to touch on is the function to take it to the lowercase and the uppercase. So it's simply by just changing the wording at the end here. So I can take it to upper, right? Meaning every letter on that sentence will be taken to uppercase, right? And then you can change this also. You can say dot to lower, right? Meaning every letter they will be changed to become lowercase. Okay. The other one that you might want to work with is the function for replace, right? So let's say we're not happy with the letter A and we want to replace the letter A. So what we'll do, we'll call the function to replace. It's just the same way we've been writing other. So it's a.replace, but you must mention first what string are you replacing, right? And what are you replacing it with. So let's go and say we're replacing the letter A. Let's say letter A, we're going to replace it with letter O, right? Very simple. So when we execute now, you will see that every letter which was A has been replaced with the letter O, right? So this might be very important when maybe, let's say for example, you're generating passwords, very important for you to know what to replace. Let's say someone has put a very weak password, it could be easy for you to generate that password of that particular person, right? Sometimes you can even remove words that you don't want. Let's say casing words, right? So you could be having a system that deals with removing casing words, and basically this is how it's done in most cases. Let's say there's a casing word. Let's say the word is, it's a casing word, right? And we want to remove it maybe with star to show that this was a casing word. So when we execute this, you will see that it will just say today, and then it removes the word is with something else. So it's very important for us to play around these functionalities. I like this functionality of replace. So the other one that you might want to be interested in is the function for split, right? So what happens with split is that it takes your string and it splits it into some strings, right? So it uses a separator, right, to show you that the string has been split, right? So let's just go see it in place. So I'm just gonna come here and say say split, right? And then I must mention what am I splitting with. So the character I'm splitting, let's say I'm splitting at y. So let's just go see the results of this. You will see now it gives you 2 sets of string. In fact, you get 4 sets of string. So today has been split to become only these 4 letters, right? And then we have the space. So y, this is the space where it's gonna split, right? So whenever it finds y, it's going to split. We can do the same with split on the letter A, since it's a very popular letter here on this statement. You will see how many sentence are we going to get, or how many strings are we going to get in terms of an array. So we get Todd as one of them, and then we get Y is S as one of them. We get Ted as one of those, and then we get Y as the last one. So whenever it finds A, it splits, it groups it together. I say this is one part, it splits, groups it together, and say this is the other part. Very important functionality as well to work with. Okay, so maybe sometimes you might just want to be splitting because there's a space. You want to split a sentence, you want to split and tell the user there must not be a space in between, and things like that. Other examples that you can think of yourself when it comes to splitting. Okay, so the other one that you you could be interested in, there are many of them, like you can check if ever a certain letter is part of your string, a certain word is part of your string. So let's just increase our string and say today is Saturday, and we are going to a party, right? So let's say you are looking for the word right? So what you're gonna do here, you are going to say you want to find out if ever there's a certain letter or a certain sentence or a word within this string. So it could be a long string or a short string. So we'll have A, and then we'll have B. B will be the letter we're looking for. So I'm looking for the word So I'll say, please check if ever the word is not in A, right? So it's going to check if ever this is not in A, right? So from there I can go and say what was the results that the system came back with, so I can print B. So it must be able to tell me whether it was found or not. There we go. So there we go. You can get a statement to say it's false, it is part of A, right? So you can say is in A, right? In fact, let's just stick to the not in A to find out if we're gonna get something. So let's look for something which is definitely not in A. Let's look for the letter boy or the word boy. Let's say boy is not part of that. You will see that yes, indeed, it says true. Boy is not part of the string, right? So you can do it vice versa by saying it's part of the string or it's not part of that particular string. And then we have already seen what we call string concatenating. So and that we saw when we were doing the previous one, wherein we'll have A being equals to, you know, Tendo, and then B being equals to my surname, right? And then we were able to just go and say, please show us the results of A together with B. So we could perform math operation on these two things, right? But what you cannot do, you cannot go and perform a subtraction on strings, right? You can't perform a multiplication on strings unless you are doing it with numbers, right? But you can say times 2. You will see times 2 will just multiply 10 by 2. You can say times 10. It will now show you multiple tenths of 10 times, right? You also cannot divide. So the other math operation does not work unless you are multiplying by a number or you are adding with another letter. The other thing which is also important is that you can have this C being equals to A plus B, and then as attempt to print C. It will still give you the desired results that we're looking for. Maybe just to make it nicer, we can put a space in between. There we go. Okay, so that is it on string concatenating. Very important as well. The other thing you can do is that maybe if you don't want to put a space here like this, you can remove this space, but as you are adding A plus B, you also add an empty string with just a space in between, and your code will then look something like this, similar to this. You still get the same results where Intendo and Bakari are separated. Okay, so very important lesson for today to notice, and you must just remember that most of these things are easy to perform. Let's say, for example, we're trying to create a program for calculating an age. So I can have my age being equal to, let's say I'm 30, and then I can have my the sentence here. I will say the sentence, it's A. I will say I am, then I want to say 30-year-old, so I can say I am, then plus let's see if this will work. I am 30, so this will assume that I am 30. Then I can continue to say years old. Let's see if ever it will be able to say, when we print A, will it pick up the word age? Right. So age was not picked up. Remember, now age is a number, so it can be added together as a string. The only way you can add it as a string, remember when we talked about casting, to enforce it to become what? A string, right? There is the only time you will get what? The age in between. There we go. I am 30 years old. So if you can just put age as it is, you are not going to be able to get it in between. Okay, and then there is another functionality as well, which you can use to enforce that insertion I'm talking about, right? So you can put the insertion in between using the functionality called format, and it should be able to give you the format you're looking for. So let's say, for example, instead of saying having age in between here, you can disregard age and say I am, and because you're looking for age, you put brackets like this, these curly brackets like this. Now what Python will look for is whenever it finds these brackets, it's going to look for a variable that is associated with that thing. So how do we associate with it? we go then and say a dot, right? So we're now picking up the string itself, a dot, then we call the function for format, and then in the format we can then call the word the variable age, right? And then see the result. It will still give you the same result. So this it's another way you can do it if you don't want to work with casting, right? So you can have an example of the following manner. You can have the item. Let's say we're creating a system for a shop. You can have an item, which this item will be calling it bread, and then you can have the price, right, for the bread. Sorry for starting with caps. Price for the bread, which will be, let's say it's $14.99, right? And then next up you can have not sure, you can have maybe quantity of how many that person is buying, QTY. So this will be, a person is buying 5 loaves of bread or 5 bread. So now we can easily go and say and have a string here. So I'll just say st1, that is my string, and then this string will be equals to the following. So I'll say I went to the shop to buy, but then now I want to say bread. I'm not gonna say bread, I will say to buy the brackets. There we go, we've got brackets. So these brackets will be replaced with the variable bread, right? And then maybe I want to say also the number of bread, to buy so many number of bread. So the first one will be quantity, and each was costing me, I'm just gonna speak with rands here because I'm in South Africa, so I'm gonna mention rands, and then here I'm gonna put the other variable, right? So we've got 3 spaces where they are waiting for variables to accept. So now when I go to my print function, I'm gonna print my st1 dot format, and then I must call each variable with a comma. So the first one was the quantity, right? So quantity, comma, the second one was the item, comma, lastly was the price. Let's see if this will come out as we have wished. So there we go. I went to the shop to buy 5, so maybe we can move to buy 5 loaves of bread. That should make sense. So I went to the shop to buy 5 loaves of bread, and each was costing me 14.99 rand. So that's how we can manipulate the strings on Python when it comes to combining it with variables. This is some skill that we normally do not pick it up on other programming languages. Okay. So we can also use what we call the indexing to make sure that the right argument is placed in the right location, right? So in terms of the location, we'll be looking at saying this location, this is location 0, this is location 1, this is location 2, just like we use, but not an important lesson. If we can pick this up, it will be easy for us to work with it. Okay, so we have already seen most of the functions, but we're not going to do all of them in terms of strings. There are so many of them that I would want you guys to try out. Things like the Z fill, the translate, the title, swap cases, start with, there are so many, the one for finding if whether something exists or not. So yeah, that brings us to the end of our lesson for strings.